we go.
Welcome to Barbell Shrugged. I'm Anders Varner, Doug Larson. We're at Project 13 in San Francisco, California. Emily, who? Brett Wingeier. I nailed that name. Your name has three vowels in a row. And that is confusing in the English language. We're going to talk to the world record holder in the bench press. That's pretty incredible. And you're the CTO, Chief Technology Officer at Halo Neuroscience.
That's right.
We just had an awesome interview and tour of the office. I had electrodes or something hooked up to my brain. I felt the little tingle. My tapping on the desk, I got so much more efficient. I assume, since you're here, we're going to talk about how the headset makes you a lot stronger, prepares you for events. But can we get a little bit of a background on your bench pressing career and just how you got into this?
Sure. Okay, my name is Emily Hu. I'm a professional power lifter. I am the current world record holder in the women's bench press for women under 56 kilograms, so 123 pounds. Before this, I also had the world record in the bench press for women under 52 kilograms, and before Steffi Cohen, I was the all-time world record holder in the total in that weight class.
Steffi,
come on.
We'll call her. We'll talk to her. Tell her to get less strong.
Just relax for a competition or two, you know? Let me have it back for a day.
She's savage.
She really is.
Have you hung out with her?
Yeah.
We were down in Miami with her, and we went to Hybrid. She's awesome. Her show's coming out next week, right after you. See, you beat her in that one. CTO at Halo Neuroscience. Tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah. So I'm a biomedical engineer by training and neuroscientist, but spent most of my career making stuff that makes brains work better. Came out of the world of implantable medical devices. My co-founder and I made an implant for epilepsy that got FDA approval in 2013. But then we realized that there was this opportunity to make stuff that that's more relevant to the world, that helps people, athletes, people like you and me, get better at what we do. Increases neuroplasticity, so you get more out of your training. That's Halo Sport. That's what we make.
Yeah. Do you have an athletic background yourself?
Yeah. So I'm a rower and a climber and a cyclist.
Sweet. You're a sick person. You do the
Yeah,
rowing thing where you have to wake up at 4:30 in the morning and go be really cold on the water.
Damn straight. Yeah.
Why do you do that?
Yeah. So I realized early on that pretty much my only athletic, like the only way I excel as an athlete is in my pain tolerance. I can put up with a lot of crap for a really long time.
I can deal with more shit than other people.
Exactly.
That's perfect. Rowing's a good one for that because you're just on the water over and over again.
It is, yeah.
How did that kind of lead into maybe the technology side of things and then meeting up with Dan?
Yeah, I mean, a couple different ways, but so Dan and I are...
just for anybody that's not aware of who Dan is, we did a show with him about 6 months ago. He's the CEO of Halo Neuroscience, so if you want to go back and get like a company history on like a much broader level, but with you here, we can dig into the technology piece and how you guys met.
Yeah, for sure. So Dan and I are we worked together for more than a decade, and we're longtime climbing and cycling buddies. And there is no better way to know that you want to start a company with somebody than to be up at the top 6 pitches up on a rock face. Somebody's forgot their headlamp. You're both scared out of your wits. You're cold. You're tired. You're mad. And then you get down and it's just all okay, and you got through that. And then when you're having the conversation, all right, are we gonna do something that's kind of hard here? Are we gonna start a company to bring brain stimulation to the broader world?
Yeah.
All right, like I guess we trust each other. Like we've been through all this pain and fear, and like we know how we're gonna react when stuff goes south.
I feel like with the Dawn Wall and Free Solo coming out, like climbing has gotten really popular all of a sudden just because it got pushed into the mainstream with those awesome documentaries.
Yeah.
Do you guys have a lot of climbers right now that are using Halo?
So there's definitely a lot of climbers that use Halo. There's no big names that we're aware of, but I mean, just like from my own experience as a climber using Halo, so much of it is mental, and this is getting more and more well known. But so much of it is technique. But there's also this thing where you have to know what your body can do, and you have to be able to push through the pain and hold your technique even when you're up there and you're cold and tired and hungry, especially if you're climbing outdoors and doing multi-pitch, and just nailing the technique, nailing that ability to squeeze that last 1 or 2% out of your body. That's what's going to keep you holding on to the rock when every fiber of your being is just wanting to fall off and like dangle from the rope.
So let's zoom out for a second. For people that aren't super familiar with Halo Sport and what it does, like what exactly is happening with the neurostimulation and how that affects performance?
Yeah. So the technology under the hood, it's called transcranial direct current stimulation, transcranial brain stimulation. It's an electrical waveform that helps your neurons fire together. And neurons firing together, that's how your brain learns anything. That's how when you know, whether you're working on your backhand or working on your climbing or bench press, your whatever output you get from your body, it's neurons firing together to create that output. And it's neurons firing together as you train. There's this thing neuroscientists say, neurons that fire together wire together. That's neuroplasticity. It's how your brain learns, and your brain loves to do that. We're helping it along. If we help neurons fire together, that's the effect under the hood, then you get more out of your training because your brain is optimizing itself faster, so you get more out of every rep.
So it's kind of like the old saying, like, you know, you never forget how to ride a bike or whatever. Like, you've done that thing so many times that, like, those nerves are wired together at some level, and you just know how to do it.
Right.
What you guys have developed helps that learning process happen faster, where that movement pattern becomes normal, so you can do it automatically quicker.
Right. And being able to optimize faster, like, yeah, you get more faster out of your training, but also at the end of the day, you get more, because everybody who trains is limited by how much time do you have to train, how far can you push your body. You're limited by recovery. So whether you're a weekend warrior or training at an elite level, getting more out of your training, it means at the end of the day you get to a higher level because you're being able to do so much more within your limits.
Yeah, and you guys, you've worked with them a lot, and you found weightlifting really, or powerlifting at a later age than most lifters do.
Yeah, I'm a total geezer. It's true. Yeah.
Just trying to find the right way to say, hey, you're old. But what's a little bit of your background? You have a master's degree from Duke. And
right. So I have a master's in biomedical engineering. For the longest time, I was a research engineer in the medical device space. I still am. But at the age of 30, I decided I wanted to start powerlifting. So I started when most people stop. I entered my first competition at 30. Luckily, I won, so I just kept going. But, you know, learning things when you're this late into the game, you don't have a lot of the advantages like young kids have, right? I don't pick up things as quickly. I'm not, like, as fearless. I recover slower. So I had a lot of catching up to do.
Yeah.
And luckily I had a coach, so I think the first 2 or 3 years I was able to cover a lot of space. But then around, like, year 3 of powerlifting, I discovered Halo. And I actually used to work in a similar space. I did research using TENS, which is like electrical current to the nerves, both motor and sensory. So I understand the research that goes behind tDCS pretty well. And I thought, oh, hey, you know, this would be great if I could just use this on my brain. This would help me learn techniques so much faster. I think I got lucky winning a lot when I was earlier in my career because, you know, I was naturally strong enough, coordinated enough, but there was a lot of flaws in my technique that were just really, like, holding me back and like frustrating me.
Yeah.
So I had this grand idea that, oh, if I use tDCS, then I could like squat a lot better because my squat technique is still so awful as a relatively neophyte lifter.
Yeah.
So luckily, Halo thought it was a good idea too, and we gave it a go, and the squat's been much better these days.
I think it's really interesting that you come from the powerlifting side of things because I know that if Olympic lifters, like the technique is so much more complicated or perceived as they're more complicated than powerlifting, but your ability to use Halo and really hammer home the technicalities of bench, squat, and dead, which when you dig into that world is very complicated. Where do you see a lot of people making mistakes when they get under the bar, specifically in the bench press?
I'd say for all of the big three, most people don't engage their core enough in the proper way. So for the bench, people have a loose back on the descent. For the squat, people have a loose back on the descent. And then for the deadlift, people don't engage their back in the right way when they're starting the lift. So in a lot of that, that's not a strength thing. That is a technique thing. You just have to cue your brain to say, okay, back, fire like this and hold like this as I do this.
Yeah.
And if you're new, that's a lot to think about, right? So you want to get to the point where it becomes intuitive to just kind of do it.
Yeah.
And tools like this really help.
In the bench press in powerlifting, specifically in competitive, it's a kind of a funky looking movement. People look at it, they don't really know what's going on.
Right.
Can you walk through a little bit of your process from maybe warm up to getting your back engaged and setting a world record at some point?
So the bench press, the way I do it, it's a very exaggerated technique. It involves a lot of the back. I have a very pronounced arch. This leads men on the internet to tell me I'm going to break my back every day. It has not happened yet, so I'm still safe, men on the internet.
Keep them on the internet. They're cool. At least they're talking.
But the warm-ups entail, you know, stretching my back, stretching the rotator cuff, getting that area warmed up, doing a few bridges to practice, and then trying out the technique with just the empty bar a few times, of making sure my back is fully engaged and firing properly as I do the warm-up with the bar.
Can you explain that position a little bit? Because if somebody doesn't really understand powerlifting or the bench press, they would look at that and say, whoa, she's going to blow out every vertebrae in her back right now.
Okay, so when I arch, so I have an arch that looks kind of like a gymnast arch or like a yoga bridge. But unlike with yoga, I'm only arching my thoracic spine and not my lumbar. So from here up is heavily curved, and from here down is relatively straight. So when people say, oh, you're going to break your back, you're going to hurt yourself, they're thinking of your lumbar spine, which does not like to be bent in that way. Luckily, during that movement, this part is tight and it's keeping the back straight, and just this part is arched, and then I have my lats supporting it and maintaining the arch. So keeping the lats tight while you're rowing the bar down is what really matters in maintaining the arch. And I think for a lot of neophyte lifters, that's the first thing they forget. When they're bringing the bar down, they think, well, I have the arch, I'll take care of everything, and they'll just drop the bar, and it'll kind of fall anywhere, and their back's not tight, and then their arch gets loose. And then that's when the trouble starts.
Yeah, and when you are arched there, your core stability is really the thing that's holding your lumbar spine in place. So how are you capable of like focusing on that area and maintaining a good position when there's, what's the record now?
277.
Damn. Damn.
Wow.
Chick so strong. 277 pounds on the bar. How are you bracing how do you focus on bracing your core when this bar is about to come back down and just crush you?
Yeah, so there's a few things, and every area has its own function. So up here stays tight in the lats.
That's the thoracic spine for you listening in your car ride to work.
Think of bringing the shoulders down and back and just pinning them in place of the lats. And then the lumbar spine and the stomach are straight. So I think of like flexing my core, keeping the stomach flexed so that area is tight. And then the lower back and the glutes support all that. So at the same time, I'm also squeezing my butt. So everything has something going on.
Always
and you have to remember to do all of it.
Yeah.
Always squeeze your butt. But the second you don't do any of it, then your arch gets loose and you drop the bar on yourself.
I think there's a big misunderstanding that the bench press is like a pec exercise. You haven't mentioned your chest at all.
Right. So for me, this
Those
is
crazy
mostly
bodybuilders that get the pump on, they're looking for the big chest. But it's really a back and lat thing.
It really is for me.
Well, it should be for everybody, right?
I do
it
so
better
slowly.
than everyone in the world. They should listen to you.
I mean, in theory, they should.
Yeah. You're an expert. I like it. But what kind of maybe debunk the myth of like it being a chest exercise, and why is your back so important in the bench press?
So the back stabilizes the bar as it moves down, and then when the back stabilizes the bar, I can think about keeping everything tight. That way, when the bar comes to the right spot, my chest is already engaged, everything's tight, my back is tight, and the bar just pops up. So pretty much keeping the back engaged is setting yourself up to have an easy ascent, right?
Yeah.
So most of your concentration, most of the work is in the descent. I exaggerate it, but my descent is probably like 3x longer than my ascent, right? I take my time bringing the bar down. Kind of feels like, definitely looks like I'm rowing the bar down. And then that gets the bar to the right spot every single time. And then when it's ready to go up, it just goes up.
I see another big flaw in where the bar actually hits on people's bodies. And they never really think about shoulder positioning and how the bar's supposed to come down. Anytime I see somebody benching and their elbows start flying out to the side, like, what are you trying to do? This isn't a tricep press. You're supposed to be benching. Get the elbows in tight. The bar's supposed to come down. Where are you thinking when the bar's coming down? Like, what is that sweet spot for you where it hits? You have your 1 second pause, and you're like,
so for me, it's pretty close to the nipple line. But the most important thing is when you practice, the bar has to come down on the same spot every single time, right? And what drives that technique is keeping the back engaged and keeping the back tight.
Yeah.
And you kind of jokingly a second ago said that's not a tricep exercise, but that's an enormous component to it. Like, are you wearing a shirt, I'm assuming, for this?
No.
You're doing raw lifts for this one? Yeah, okay. So yeah, you're going to have definitely some pec activation and whatnot, but especially for lockout, like triceps are an enormous part of the bench press. So you were joking, but for someone who's not interested in familiar with powerlifting, like having strong triceps is an enormous part of the lift.
Yeah. Anything above getting that lockout piece is all triceps. So we've got a lot of seemingly easy movement here. Something that should, like, everybody bench presses. That's like the question in the gym, like, what do you bench? But nobody really is taking it to this level. And when you see this problem or see something where it's a motor capacity in a way of like, how are we wiring movement patterns? What are you looking at when you see somebody bench press?
Yeah. Well, so the core of so much of what you were saying there is how important technique is, and everything that goes from like the average person like me who just goes to the gym and like, oh, look, I'm benching whatever. And what you're doing, it's so much of it is technique, and that's the way you dial in that technique is it's neuroplasticity. It's your brain knowing what to do. And when you start that journey, when you start the journey to good technique, you start by being very analytical about it. And there's this cognitive process where you listen to your coach, you process what they're telling you. You think through, okay, here's what I've read, here's what I've heard, here's how it looks, here's what my coach is telling me, and you try to reproduce those movements. And the first time, the 10th time, the 100th time, you don't get it right. So you've got this feedback loop. Anybody who's learning anything in your brain, you've got this feedback loop where you're constantly analyzing your output, and you're trying to match that up with everything that cognitively but none of it's baked in yet. So that's the first phase of learning, and you're starting this process of every single repetition, not just cognitively, but under the hood in the neural networks of your brain. It's learning to just automatically create exactly the right output at exactly the right time. And one of the cool things about the whole motor system is you've got so your muscles don't just fire. I mean, you guys know this. Like, I'm preaching to the choir here, because you guys are lifters, but your muscles, they don't just fire as one muscle. You've got a ton of muscle fibers there. They're all individually innervated, which means there's an individual nerve connection to all over that muscle. So getting optimum technique and optimum strength, it relies on exactly the right combination of outputs at the right time. And the only way that happens, you can't think through all that with every movement you're doing. That comes from this, with every rep, it gets a little more automatic.
Yeah. I actually see this so much in beginner to intermediate lifters is they know all the pieces, but there's very little system of movement that's going on. Like you in a bench press, nobody's thinking about squeezing their butt. Nobody's thinking about the way they're breathing to stabilize their spine. All they're thinking is get it to my chest and push. So how is kind of using electricity and getting to the motor cortex really able to wire the entire body together?
Yeah. So first of all, the cool thing here is this is what your brain likes to do anyway. However you train, if you're training mindfully and you're paying attention to your technique, your brain is doing this learning anyway. But a technology like Halo Sport, it's like an assisted pull-up for your brain. Your neurons, they're doing their thing. They are firing together. When you have a successful rep, successful output, those connections get reinforced. But what technology like this does is it increases the chances that they're going to fire together. It helps them, it lowers the threshold, depolarizes the neuron somewhat, makes it more likely for them to fire together. So that whole process of firing together and wiring together, it optimizes the neural network faster.
Awesome.
So that's kind of like saying instead of like one unit firing and then the next and the next and the next, you're squeezing it all together. We're all firing at the exact same time. So if you're doing a tug of war and the guy in the front pulls and then the next guy and then the next guy and the next guy versus everyone pulling all at the same time, you're obviously going to have a stronger contraction if everyone pulls all together. Right. Yeah, you're exactly right about timing.
By the way, that was legit.
Yeah, that
was
totally
tug of war. That tug of war.
Yeah, we're gonna have a video with that, like animated tomorrow. Like, Justin, can you do that? But it's all about timing, and like when you dive down into the neurophysiology of your synapses, if you have a certain timing that's almost synchronous between this neuron firing and the next one, then that's the signal for that synapse. Okay, that was a successful outcome. I'm going to get a little stronger here, and then it cascades from there, and you just keep getting better and better.
When you started your career in powerlifting, what was that process like? You started a little bit later than most people. You've got a lot to catch up. Was there a bunch of hang-ups in the beginning on the form? And then once you started to use started working with Halo, how much quicker did that pick up for you?
So when I first started, I had never bench pressed before.
Ever?
I mean, I did like bodybuilding, like bench pressy type things.
Yeah, but not like
I never
power lift. Yeah.
So I actually hired a coach, and I said, I'm not sure about this bench press thing. Can we just skip that? And can I just compete in the other events? And he said no.
I just want squat.
So I was like, crap. So I have to learn all this.
Yeah.
So the bench actually took a while to learn. That was the whole like arch and leg drive. That took forever to learn. That That was difficult. But the squat remained the most difficult.
Yeah.
I would do everything that a neophyte lifter would do, right? I would tabletop, shoot my butt out. I wouldn't like, when I would descend backwards, not straight down. So that, for those reasons, my squat lagged all the other lifts as I improved.
Yeah.
And I remember getting very frustrated thinking, like most people are getting these kind of gains on their squat and I can't, so why not? And obviously it was my technique, but I just kept thinking, why can't I do X, Y, and Z even though I know to do it? Why won't my body do it? So I was already working on this when I met Halo, and then when I got a unit, I was still working on this, but I find that the problems have decreased significantly.
Yeah.
I don't tabletop the way I used to, and I don't shoot my butt out the back the way I used to, so it's really helped. I mean, I think a lot of it was just like really diligent, mindful training too, having a coach, watching myself lift, and just knowing that I was doing these things and working against it actively. But then doing all that plus the Halo gave an extra boost.
You're not just a bench presser. You also do the squat and the deadlift.
It's happened before.
Pretty well. You had the world record total as well, right? So in your squat and deadlift, did you see the same, like, I guess, growth?
The squat the most so.
Yeah.
And I think it was because that was the pose actively working on the most. That was my biggest pain point.
Yeah. I think many people look at the bench press and they think that, like we were talking about earlier, like it's a chest. We're talking about it being a back, but nobody's thinking about where their heels are in the ground and how this is actually a very full body movement. What's going on with your heels? Many people may not be thinking about their feet and where their feet are planted, that they're driving out of the ground at all when it comes to lifting maximum weight in the bench.
Through my feet, I'm getting leg drives. I'm using my feet to help maintain my arch. My body is being pushed towards the bar with my feet, and I'm squeezing my butt so that I don't slide off the bench the whole time.
And if your butt comes off the ground, no lift, right? Or off the bench.
Right.
That's like the specific rule in there that there's no gap.
Right. So I'll know I'm doing this right because at very, very high and very intense bench workouts, my lower back will get tired.
Yeah. One thing I'm really interested in is how you're using this going into meets, because a powerlifting meet is not, it happens across like an 8-hour day many times. Like
it's definitely a mental marathon.
You can go do your squat and then sit around for 3 hours until your deadlift, and then another 3 hours or whatever it is until bench press shows up. So what is your process during the actual competition, and are you using Halo to prepare for those?
So I use Halo first thing in the morning before the squat, which is the first event. And then after that, my process is, I like to start the day off with good squats. If that, for me, that kind of sets the tone of how I feel for the day. And then after that, it's keep well fed and keep yourself calm and relax.
Yeah.
But I just use this system once throughout my meet.
Just when you wake up?
Yeah.
There's no additional benefit to using it right before each individual lift?
I think there is, but for me, the squat makes me the most nervous. So from a mental readiness standpoint, if I can have a good squat day, then I just feel confident doing everything else.
Yeah.
Is that the, you guys prescribe, so to speak, or you suggest once a day, but have you guys experimented with multiple times a day with the technology?
So, we and others are working on that. Right now, we base that recommendation in the science, and the vast majority of the science is using this once a day. So, and just to be clear, it's most of the benefit actually comes not on game day, but just from the cumulative effect of combining it with great practice over time. So, but yeah, it's I think everybody in the science is interested in, well, how far can we push this?
So this isn't something where if you've never used it before and you got a competition coming up and you buy it the day before competition and you go on the next day, you're going to smash this massive PR because you were stimulated that day. It's an accumulative effect over time, but not necessarily like a one-time deal.
Right. Yeah. I mean, so under laboratory conditions, we can show an effect in one session. But for competition, I mean, you might just be so excited because you got this awesome pair of great sounding headphones that you smash all your records. But yeah, the real effect here is just combining it with high-quality training over time.
Yeah.
So is it mostly just a solidification of the technique and the coordination, as opposed to actually increasing muscle contraction force specifically?
Right. So there's like 3 parts to that answer. So I'm going to give you the slightly long answer. All right. So a big part of it is technique. Another part of it is the fact that actually getting the most force out of your muscle, especially if you're talking about explosiveness and not just peak force. Part of that is it is literally training that neural network to, again, remember your muscle, it's made up of a lot of muscle fibers, motor units. So you have to train all those to fire within the muscle in the right sequence for optimum strength, optimum explosiveness. And you can see that most clearly if you look at something like rate of force development or explosiveness. The third part of the answer is there is good science out there that just at a very raw level shows increased neural drive to the muscle, which translates to things like greater maximum voluntary contraction. So there's all three of those things going on.
And you guys just had some independent studies that you didn't even know about show up.
Right.
That validated all of the research you guys have been doing.
Exactly. Yeah. There's one of those looked at power output during cycling. That was, and these were great randomized, double, triple, in one case blinded, sham-controlled studies.
Yeah.
One was in cycling power output. Another one was in basically endurance time to failure in a running kind of model. And that when we talk about time to failure, that's really interesting, and it's one of the most powerful effects of this kind of technology. I think maybe I'm just speaking from my background as a rower, but Emily, from the way you were describing powerlifting, there's so many sports that when you try to do it at an elite level or at a serious level, you're doing the movements not in the way that like a regular human being would come and approach a bar with weights on it, or approach an oar in a boat or whatever. There's a ton of technique that frankly it's not natural in some ways to how the human body just wants to move. So we have to bake that in, and certainly in rowing, and it sounds like in powerlifting as well, when especially if you're performing at that elite level, it hurts. You're trying to not only execute this precise technique, but do it under crazy conditions where everything is just on the point of failure.
Yeah.
And that makes it doubly and triply hard to keep your act together and keep that technique. When it hurts, stuff starts to break down, and the only cure for that is just baking it more and more into muscle memory.
We have this cool box, Halo Sport 2. A lot of upgrades. We're gonna open this up because it's super cool. They invited the smartest, fastest, strongest people to come experience the brand new thing, and we just got them. Put your thumbs in here. We open this thing up. Now we're in. Doug, what do you think, bud? And this is the piece where the electricity kind of comes through, and this is where all the priming happens. So you can hook that in. Super simple. It's way more comfortable. It's unbelievable. It does feel lighter. Go use the code SHRUGGED. You're going to get the cheapest price. We save you money. Even on the pre-launch, save money and then save more money. I think really in the CrossFit space too, where a ton of our audience is, we get to the red line very quick, and we still have to go and do these really complex movements. Olympic lifting for time, for load and time at some workouts, and then you get into really high skill, complex gymnastics, and your heart rate's at near maximal level. You have to have something that's able to keep that technique moving, or the entire workout breaks down, which you're talking about.
Right.
And I think that's why you guys are having such success. I mean, Kristen Holt works with you guys, and she's been in the top 10 in the CrossFit Games for the last 3 or 4 years, I want to say.
Yeah.
Have you noticed anything outside of her, or maybe specifically with her, in how you're able to, I mean, that to be great at CrossFit, there's so many skills that people have to master that it almost seems like this device is perfect in its setup for people to be able to chest to bar pull-ups, muscle-ups, pullovers, just everything that goes into it, Olympic lifting, that it almost fits perfectly because you're able to have a much larger breadth of movement and really be working on the quality of movement as well.
Right. And I'll speak more generally than to just Kristen's experience, but just overall, this has been. It feels like this has been very well received by the CrossFit community, and a big part of it is exactly what you're saying. There's so much, just so many different types of movements that you want to optimize. But the other thing is part of what activates this whole feedback cycle in your brain is quantifying results. And part of that quantification is just how did it feel? That's always part of the internal loop. Another part of it is tracking your performance and being very analytical about what am I optimizing, what did I do right, what did I do wrong, and that makes that whole feedback loop work better. and it also it better and better leverages a technology like this that speeds up neuroplasticity anyway. And I think that's that's something that's really great about CrossFitters is that kind of approach to quantifying and analyzing.
Yeah. So if I'm a person who I know that when I do high volume deadlifting, like I'm doing CrossFit style workouts, I'm doing a Metcon, I say I have 225 and there's a total of 50 reps in this workout, and I know that once I get fatigued, my technique is going to change, it's going to get worse, I'm going to start rounding my back or whatever it is. Would it be to my benefit? It would be to my benefit. I'm answering my own question here to just not do that ever, but but say that's the case and this person does that on occasion. If I had that stimulation, I wore the headset for 20 minutes before my workout, and then now I'm fatigued and I'm doing something incorrect, would it solidify the incorrect movement pattern even faster? So would I want to, if that's true, would I want to break that workout up where I'm doing every minute on the minute, 5 reps or whatever it is, right? But I'm not getting that fatigued. I get the volume in, but they're all perfect reps. That way that technique is solidified in the correct way.
Yeah, so that does make sense, and that is absolutely true. If you use this technology with poor technique, then you're going to bake in poor technique. If you use it sitting on the couch, then you're probably just going to get better at sitting on the couch. You know, part of the answer to that is coaching. Part of that is being very kind of self-analytical about when your technique is starting to fail. Part of it is, as you say, being careful that you don't reach the point where your technical work is counterproductive and everything's just starting to break down. But that said, there is also a ton of value to training the way you compete. And if you never expose that point of failure, then you're going to get to it in a competition or when you're really trying to push yourself. And you're not going to have the feedback systems baked in to be able to push past that and have your body and your neural networks understand what it feels like to still execute even when everything hurts. So you got to be analytical about how you expose that point of fatigue and failure, but it does still have to be done.
When we talk about CrossFitters, I think it's really easy to see how many different things we do, but when you walk up to a bar, there's a zillion things going through your head. When you specifically, I mean, we talked a lot about the setup points and positioning for the bench press, but when you walk up to a bar and you're about to do 1RM back squat and there's all these people in the stands, what's going through your brain? And like, does Halo, when you're working or have the headset on, is it bringing a lot of like just trusting your movement patterns and like that confidence that comes with approaching a 1 rep max?
Definitely. So when I'm setting up for a bench press, especially in a competition, my biggest concern is always my arch. And it's always, is my arch tight enough? Is it high enough? Is it going to, am I going to be able to maintain it properly on the descent?
Mm-hmm.
And then, if I can do that, then I can make this lift. So it's nice to find a way to be able to train that reliably so that when game day happens, most of the time the answer is yes.
So you don't even really think about it much as like, am I strong enough? It's about the technique piece for you.
Right, definitely. Because at this point, for me, over the years I've noticed that, if the difference between a good day and bad day for technique is many pounds. So the strength is always there. It's at this point, it's the arch that I'm worried about.
What is your weakest part in the bench press now?
It's probably still the descent. It's getting the bar down at just the right point, at just the right speed, so it pops up very quickly.
Well, isn't there a pause at the bottom?
Yes.
And you can still pop it up. It sounds like you're like bouncing it off your chest.
So as long as I don't get loose during
That's
the pause.
That's how I bench press. When me and you bench press all against each other today, I'm going to cheat. You do it the right way, I'll cheat.
Oh, yeah, then I'm going to throw my butt up.
That's whatever you want. Whatever you want. But yeah, I'm kind of interested in just the confidence side of using it and knowing that once you wake up in the morning, you have this mindful time, you're working on, you put the headset on. But what is like the mental shift, I guess, that goes into, using it over time, the confidence that you've had, but just a little bit of the story on just the mental aspects of going into a powerlifting meet and being a professional powerlifter.
I think the biggest mental shift is knowing that my technique will not fail me in a competition.
Yeah.
Right? So when I was new to deadlifting, when I got nervous, I would round my back a lot. That happens far less now, which is great. And then for squatting, when I got nervous, all would go to hell.
What's your deadlift at?
430.
We're not deadlifting today. Thank God. Go ahead. Keep going. What's your squat?
I I think that one's like 357.
I got that.
That's a ways to go.
Yeah, I got
so,
that one.
You know, that's always the biggest concern, and for that, that's also largely technique driven.
Yeah.
Right. So when I was
talking shit, you weigh 80 pounds less than me. Keep going. I'm so sorry.
But I want to know that my brace is always going to be there, right? So for squatting, my biggest problem initially was the brace. I wasn't bracing correctly.
Yeah.
If I can brace correctly all the time, then it just makes it that much easier in a competition.
When you're using the headset, are you able to kind of focus on the pieces? Like, is there a mindset piece that you're using, or like almost like a meditative piece of like thinking about your core more, thinking about stabilizing more, or do you just have it on to?
You know, the nice thing about the headset is it's not like you have to think about it working. It just works.
Yeah. Yeah, well, what is like a normal warm-up, I guess, then? Or, like, can you walk us through what your current training looks like so that we can see?
Sure. So I train about 5 days a week. I travel a lot for the day job, so sometimes it's 4, sometimes it's 5.
Doesn't it always get in the way?
I know.
We're lucky we made
being
this
an
the
adult
day
sucks. But most weeks I'll bench about 2 times, I'll squat about 2 times, I'll deadlift once. And then warm-ups are pretty simple. It's a lot of foam rolling the area. It's a lot of mobility. And then it's just doing the actual movement with much lighter weights and focusing on form, speed, and power.
Yeah, moving 135 the same way you move 277. Do you have a coach now?
I've always trained with Dan Green since day one.
Wait, where's he out of?
Mountain View, out of Boss Barbell.
Boss Barbell. That's a good name for a gym.
Yep. So he was my first coach, and he's been my only coach.
That's awesome. Who are your training partners? Do you have like a bunch of strong people you're working out with?
Yeah, I mean, I train at a powerlifting gym, so there's a bunch of people there.
Do they all use the headset, or they look at you like you're crazy?
You know, I think 3 of us have it.
Are they the strongest ones in the gym?
Actually, yes.
Bam! Case
That's
closed. Case closed. Well, you guys so we had, when Dan was on the show, we had the Halo Sport 1, and you guys we're about to release Halo Sport 2. We put it on in the office. It's significantly more comfortable. That was my biggest drawback with the first one, was that the thing was uncomfortable. This one's incredibly comfortable.
That is fantastic to hear.
I put it on and I looked at Doug like right away, and it was like, whoa, this is wildly different. Like just as a user experience, it's significantly more comfortable. The Bluetooth in there so you can get your music while you're training. When you take the nibs out, which is the piece that kind of delivers the shock, it's still very comfortable, so you can use it as a training headset. But what were the big improvements and things that you were thinking about in the technology, and then having that become the actual product? Like what were you trying to improve on?
Yeah. So we knew we had a lot of room for improvement in just making headphones. You know, we came into this. We're medical device guys. We're neuroscientists. We never even dreamed like 6 years ago that we'd be sitting here making headphones. So we had to learn a lot in a hurry. We learned a lot with Halo Sport, the original, and now we learned even more, and we knew that it had to be more comfy. It had to have Bluetooth audio. The audio, we had to level up on the audio quality, and just all the little things that go into usability. Because at the end of the day, if you're training or whatever context you're using a product like this in, it's got to fit into your life, and you know you've got to be able to wear it into the gym and have people's first glance be, you know, hey, that's a nice looking pair of headphones, and then they look a little closer, and it's got these nibs on it, which we've made a little bit softer, we've made a little bit easier to stay wet. That's one of the pieces of feedback we got from our users, and I feel like we've been very lucky in having a lot of users just straight from early on, like Emily, like TJ Carey, the Raiders, some of our earliest adopters. They used the heck out of the product, and they got great results. But also they came to us and said, "Hey, here's what we want." I think TJ broke like 3 headsets just using the heck out of it, and it was awesome because we learned a lot from each of those. And so all that stuff, it goes into just a ton of little improvements on everything that you hear, everything that touches your head, and everything that makes it not just a neurostimulator, but a product that you can throw in your gym bag and you can put on and it looks good and sounds good and makes you feel good.
For the people that just heard you say that those things do better staying wet, that might have been a record scratch for some people. Like, wait, they have to be wet? My headphones have to be wet on my head? Like, what's the deal with that? Why do they have to be wet? How wet do they have to be? Am I have like wet drips coming down my face while I'm wearing my headphones.
Right. Well, you better be sweating. So yeah, you got to have some wet drips. But seriously, so the language of the brain is electricity. The waveform is an electrical waveform, and anything that has to do with electricity in the body takes a little water to make it happen. So for the people just listening here, I'm holding what we call the primer band, and it's got some little foam nibs on it. They feel nice and soft. They're little sponges. And to make this work, you have to get these wet. You run it under the faucet at the gym, under your water bottle, spray it with water from a bottle, and then you snap it into the headset. And that's the part that makes great contact with your scalp, and that's what actually delivers the waveform we call neuropriming.
Some people are going to listen to this and go, electricity on my brain, on a band. Is this thing safe?
Yeah.
That's testing, and you guys have cleared all that up clearly with Halo 1, but just a little bit on the safety side of putting a little bit of electricity on your brain.
Yeah, no, it's an awesome question. It's an important question. So this is a technology that's been used. First of all, it's been studied in thousands of published research studies by hundreds of researchers all over the world, and so there's a body of just hard data on the safety, and the outcome of that is it's safe. So that's part one. Part two is our own data. We have thousands upon thousands of users now. We monitor what they're saying about the product. We monitor what happens with them. That's part two. It's safe. And then part three, if you look at what you call basic principles, what is this actually doing to your brain and your body? Well, you've already got neurons firing together. This is it's not kind of it's helping your neurons fire together, which is what they already like to do. So even just from basic principles, there's data, the science, it all comes together. Halo Sport is safe.
Yeah, I mean, we're mostly talking with athletes right now, but for someone they're not looking to be a world-class bench press champion or anything like that. Like they're just kind of a regular everyday Joe. And you said rock climbing, cycling, etc. Like even outside the world of athletics, like who else might benefit from using Halo?
Right. So certainly weekend warrior athletes, but really anybody who lives and dies by movement. And that's been one of the cool things that we've seen as we've gotten more and more of these out into the world. Musicians, if you're a musician, whether you're a pro or just somebody trying to learn piano, you're an athlete. You're doing amazing things with your hands and your fingers. And in order to communicate with music, you've got to have all those technical fundamentals dialed in, so you can let your fingers form that D minor chord or whatever, and then you're free to express yourself. I've used it for I'm a piano player. I've used it for practicing piano. We've got world-class pianists and violin players and cellists, flamenco dancer. There are surgeons using it's actually an active field of research right now, is surgical training with non-invasive brain stimulation to speed up the surgical training, and there's some great scientific papers that are published on that already.
Yeah. What about like soldiers in the military, pilots, things like that?
Yeah. So that's some of our earliest adopters have been U.S. Special Forces. Pilot training, that's tons of interest in that. One thing we learned from working with some of these amazing soldiers, especially Special Forces, is when they don't want to spend more time in the gym. They want to spend less time in the gym so they can carve out more time for learning languages and working on soft skills and working on all the stuff that makes them not just that makes them highly trained professionals. So anything that gets them more out of their training, they're all in. It's been fantastic.
Actually, on that note, this really is siloed to motor skills. Like if you wanted to learn languages, this wouldn't apply, or would it?
So same technology, but not Halo Sport. There's a ton of great research out there in what you'd call cognitive applications, and that's things like attention and focus and learning. It's no secret at this point that Halo is interested in those applications, but that's not Halo Sport. Halo Sport is movement because the motor cortex is right here, right across the top of your head where the band of the pair of headphones goes.
I was actually going to get into just playing devil's advocate of there's plenty of people that could be listening saying, why don't I just practice visualization or meditation or some sort of brain focus piece that can aid in, better movement patterns.
Yeah, yeah.
But there's a big difference between the parts of the brain, as you're explaining, on that handle that focus and attention piece, and where you're at it. Can you just go into a little bit of the actual like neuroscience of why the band hangs out in your motor cortex and what goes on there?
Yeah, absolutely. So it's called primary motor cortex, and it's this strip right across the top of your head, which I mean, it's one of the reasons we went with one of the reasons when we started the company, we started as a research organization, and we looked at all the science that was out there. We studied some of the cognitive stuff. We studied some of the movement stuff. And we decided we were going to make these headphones for athletes because motor cortex is right here, and it let us make a product that looked and felt like headphones, which is it's so huge for when you're trying to kind of bring a whole new technology to the world. So so brain's motor cortex, it's got what's called somatotopic organization. So different parts of your body map to different parts of that motor cortex. Your legs and core are right at the top where it starts to dive down into the interhemispheric fissure between the two halves of your brain. And then if you come outwards, it's arms, hands, fingers, till you get to the more lateral parts of your brain. So that's one of the reasons.
Your brain is actually like core to extremity, almost in a way as well.
Yeah, exactly.
What?
Yeah.
What?
Yeah. So it's all mapped out. And if you're if you're doing brain mapping like fMRI or infrared brain mapping, FNIRS, you can and you tap your fingers, you can see this part of your brain light up right here because it's specifically that part of your brain that's controlling that part of your body.
So this is connected with an app, which you're the CTO of the company, so I imagine you have a large hand in developing the app as well. Mm-hmm. What is actually on that app? What does it help you do? And then is there any data collected along with that you guys can use to innovate for future products?
Yeah. So we first of all, full credit to the guys working on the app. That's not me. They don't let me anywhere near that. But we've got an awesome team of developers. So the app, it's a front panel for the device. It lets you start it up, monitor what's going on, make sure you get good contact. At the end of the day, the app kind of gets out of the way and lets you do your thing with your training. You can start it up. You can leave your phone in your bag and go across the street, go to the other end of the gym, and the headset is still going to do what it's supposed to do. But then at the end of that, the app lets you track your progress, track your usage, and then we get some usage data back, so we understand. People want to quickly get great contact right when they put it on. So some of the improvements that we've made in Halo Sport 2 have come from looking at that data and seeing how do people fiddle around when they put the product on.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, if I didn't have that app, I would not have had it. I wouldn't have had full contact.
Right.
Like once I had the app, and I was like, I had pulled onto my skull and tightened down a little bit and made sure I got the nibs through my hair, so I had good contact. Mm-hmm. But if I didn't have the app, I would have just put them on and it wouldn't have worked.
Yeah. So the app's vital there. And you mentioned hair, and let me just point out that that's one of the challenges that we knew we had to meet with the original Halo Sport, and where we've leveled up here is for those of you listening, I'm bald. I'm baldest guy in the room right now, I think.
Stop it.
I
got you.
No, I think
throwing you a bone.
You got more stubble up here than I do. But yeah, not everybody looks like me. So we knew we had to build something that would get through hair, get through a lot of hair, and just do that seamlessly.
Yeah. As you progress in your professional career here, do you continue, or you're planning on continuing using this?
Yeah, definitely. I still use it for squats every so often. I don't less so the bench these days.
When you're the best.
I did gymnastics for 2 weeks last year, so I used it right before gymnastics.
Very cool.
And then I was able to do flips really quickly.
Yeah.
So
are you still recognizing a lot of the gains as far as some of the movements you struggle with, like the squat?
I think in general, gains are just really hard to come by once you reach a certain training age. So I just don't see that many gains in general. But yes, I do notice that technique continues to improve over time.
That's the gain.
Right, but it doesn't improve like it used to.
You know better than just focus the weight on the bar.
Right.
You know better than that. Yeah, so I guess in a way, using this, if your performance or whatever it is, if you find that it's, I shouldn't say stalled out, but does it change the way that you're kind of using the headset, in your day?
Not really. I just see it as a kind of like a tool in a toolbox.
Yeah.
So I use it along with all my other tools, and I train the same.
Yeah. Is your training volume going up, down? Where are you at now?
I think it's going down.
Yeah.
So I just train less days because, when I first started, on an average day, I'd be probably benching 1x body weight per bench workout. Now I'm benching 1.8x body weight every single bench workout. I can't do that 3 days a week.
Yeah, that's a lot of volume, a lot of beatdown. 1.8 every day that you get on the bench?
Something like that.
How much accessory movements are you putting in?
And then maybe like 3 accessories.
Yeah. What are those?
So I'll bench maybe like.
I want to know everything you do in training.
Maybe I'll do like
a set of like on the bench right now.
240 for like
a
few sets, and then my accessories will be either like close grip or it'll be incline dumbbells. Yeah. I'll do some flies, and I'll always do one back exercise just to keep the core tight.
Do you do a lot of unilateral work?
Such as
like single arm.
It depends. So I do single arm rows a lot, and that might be it.
We need to get you more accessories.
Such as?
Well, we'll go over them, but you have to teach me how to bench press. I'll teach you the accessories. Keep you healthy. Then we can go 1.9 next year. 1.9 every time you touch the bench.
There we go. All right.
Mm-hmm. So you're getting ready to launch this get.Halo sport.com/shrugged. You guys can it's $20 off on the pre-launch.
I believe that's right.
When you put out the brand new headset, what's going on in your brain right now? You're about to introduce the last year and a half of work to the world. What's going on in your brain right now? Is this an exciting time?
It's an exciting time, and I bet it's a lot like what Emily feels like on that morning of a competition. It's anticipation. It's we're bringing this to the world, and but at the end of the day, we got this, and we've done the right things, and it's not the day of the competition that decides what's going to happen. It's all the preparation you put into it. It's the same for developing a product as it is for training.
Yeah, once you guys launched the first one, how long was it before you were like, we got to make that better. We're going to have to come up with a second one. We left a little bit in the tank. How long was that process?
Oh man, like when you're building something like this,
I wonder if you're already like, oh gosh, there's 5 things I need to make better right now.
Oh yeah, like as an engineer, as an engineer, you look at anything you make and you're like, all right, no, oh geez, and that's that, that's. But and it was the same way for Halo Sport Classic. We knew we wanted to move pretty quickly to make something that had Bluetooth audio. We make something that made it even easier to get contact with your head. So yeah, that's part of how you do product development is we got to be thinking about the next step ahead, the next step, and the next step after that.
Yeah, how much goes into seriously, the thing that I was most impressed with, because I haven't used it on the performance side, but you put it on and it's significantly more comfortable. What is the process for that for you of actually designing a headband that people are comfortable in? Like, it seems oversimplified almost, but as soon as I put it on, it was the very first thing that I noticed. It was like, this thing actually fits.
Yeah. Well, the first step is a bald guy like me putting on a lot of headsets and being like, that's kind of pokey up there, and that actually did drive one of the things you notice here is what we call the proximal pad, but really it's just the strip of rubber here that makes it comfortable on anybody's head and makes it so it doesn't slip off your head if you're moving around, which is key for athletes. Another thing we knew was on the edge here, we needed to get this edge up out of the way so it doesn't make it soft, get it up out of the way so it doesn't kind of crunch into your head, but still does what it needs to do to lock the primer band in when you snap this in. So
yeah, it's true. Without the primers on for the previous version, I wouldn't wear it without the primers because it would dig into my head a little bit. But now with this newer version, like I can actually just use these like everyday headphones. I can wear them on the airplane or wear them like throughout my entire workout because they're comfortable with and without the primers on.
Right. I actually really like that it's 1 piece instead of 3 as well.
Cool.
The 3 pieces. I'm not that responsible. I'm gonna lose something. Who am I kidding? But that 1 piece makes it a lot easier and just a much more usable thing. I'm really excited to get it home.
Awesome.
And try it out.
Awesome.
We're gonna do some bench press.
Let's do it.
World record holder. Where can people find you?
At the office or on Instagram.
Where's the office? You want them to come to the office? They will. They're out there. The people will come.
You can find me on Instagram.
That's probably a safer place.
Ami the Bench Bra. Ami AMI. That's my nickname.
Wait, what is it?
Ami AMI.
Cool.
Ami the Bench Bra. Bra BRAH.
Bra. Right on. Do you have an Instagram account?
I don't. I'm on Twitter. Wingeier is my handle on Twitter.
There you go.
So
how do you spell that?
W-I-N-G-E-I-E-R.
I had a hard time saying it, so now I gotta spell it.
Yeah, W-I-N-G, then take all the vowels in the world and pack on an R at the end.
Squeeze them together.
Got it.
And people can, it's gethalosport.com/shrugged. For the pre-launch, you're going to save $20, and it's at a $299 price point, which is like less than half of what it was for Get Halo, or for the Halo Sport 1.
You got it.
Classic. I like you saying that.
Pre-launch goes through April. Is that correct?
Pre-launch goes through April, I believe, but check out the site. Don't quote me on that.
And I've actually heard you guys had 2 runs come through already, and pre-orders are sold out on a monthly basis.
Yep.
So people get in there because they're literally selling out before they've even been produced.
You got it.
Doug Larson,
right
where
on.
can the people find you?
Find me on Instagram, Douglas E. Larson.
I'm at Anders Varner because I'm Anders Varner. Get in the Shrug Collective at Shrug Collective. YouTube, iTunes. We will see you next Wednesday.